Good afternoon. Hi. It's taken me about 2 hours to try and get started on this stream, and hopefully it won't die. And I am committed now. I'm going to buy a new computer tonight because I'm over it. And yeah, it's too much. I can't. Everything I do it freezes. So anyway, we'll see how we go on this stream. And yeah, again, I don't even know if there's going to be loads to say, but I'll just sort of show what I've been looking at recently. I haven't done much more on Bitcoin or anything since my last stream or since the post in the channel either, because it was so sort of messy. Obviously, we had this kind of now what's looking like a bull flag type thing, or a distribution. That could go either way. We had a weekly supply, so just show the weekly. We had a weekly supply here when we closed this red candle below, but it was weak because it just came down with the wick. And then now last week's closed back above again. So I've kind of flipped it to a demand drawing. So the blue is the big weekly demand now, and we already had a 2 day that was flipped in there. So initially I was looking for a short potentially on the retest of the 2 day in here, and then like if we retrace some more of this wick a little bit higher, but obviously we just keep grinding through there, and the data's just been hideous. So as a result, I haven't really been looking at this at all. Obviously, that's the next level of interest, and then potentially taking out these equal highs. And it's still worth looking at shorts. I think this is obviously still looking bullish at the moment, but purely because we had very similar in this distribution here where we're doing big retraces or took out the high there. Similarly, in this one down here, each of the retraces was virtually the whole drop. So we could still be here in terms of how it's looking. And obviously, as always, I don't long in supply. So regardless of whether I think it's going to go up, I may not short, but I definitely don't long up here. So as far as long on the long side goes, at the moment, I think I've still only got an alert all the way down the bottom here, just because I was highly skeptical of what this whole thing had done. But we do have weekly demand in there. We do have a 2 day sitting. I haven't got that marked as a 2 day, but there was a 2 day already. Actually, the 2 days lower, excuse me. That's the 2 day down there. So 104. So there are kind of levels to look for longs in here if you wish. That's probably the critical area to start with. 105 around there, or just above 105, just below 105 in here. If it holds, failing that, there's an 8 hour all the way down the bottom there. But if we did come all the way back here, like I really think this potentially also needs to hold this red box that I've got drawn in and just break out now if it's going to break out. I'm not confident of that purely because of what the data is telling me. So I'll get to that in a minute. So I've still got the CME gap in there. We've had some fuckery this morning where we pushed up and made a new high, another taking out previous stops, having done that a couple of times already, and then we came back and filled the gap. So again, it's pretty good that we're still holding up here. And the things I was looking for were on the data side. Let's get back to the data. Hopefully we'll load. So I look at this coinalized data just to see what the CBDs are doing. So we've had like a really poor Coinbase CBD, a really poor spot CBD. We've the futures has been up and down. It was quite bad at the end of last week, but it's now picked up again over the weekend. You can see we've had a huge drop off in it today, but I mean, really, the messing around is just futures messing around and OI. But what I really wanted to see was people longing the top on this. And again, we didn't get that. You can see we've got that in here finally, and I can go to the EXO data and show you the actual net longs. Like a lot of these were just shorts coming in, so we've had so many shorts being liquidated. But I said before the weekend, the data wasn't really showing why it was staying up, except for the ETFs. So we've had ETF buying all last week and continuing on Friday, and that's kind of the only thing I'm seeing buying. And I think previously I was kind of seeing that in the spot CBDs, but I don't know. I guess they're doing so much OTC that you don't really see the CBDs for this. The other thing today that's again slightly concerning again, if it's going to load, is that we've got Grayscale. I mean, to be fair, Grayscale did do this back in April. I think I was actually looking back for the data and couldn't find it. I think these Arkham might have reclassified these wallets, and I don't know if they're just moving money into Grayscale and possibly like obscuring their holdings. That's kind of what I was thinking, because like what was happening back in April is they were moving money into different wallets. But then they appeared to, like, I know, unfortunately, I didn't keep track of those wallets, but they appeared to just be sitting there in the wallet. So I don't know if they're just spreading money across multiple wallets. It might be for a risk purpose. Like, maybe it's nothing sinister. Maybe it's just, in case they get hacked, they're conscious of getting hacked and they don't want to lose all their wallets if they do get hacked. But yeah, they have done a lot of this moving around again today. So I don't really know what's going on there, but just, again, something to be a bit careful of. And we've had a bit of buying from ARK there by the looks of it. But again, this data has become harder to read. Like previously, I think this was matching reasonably well with the end of the day data that I was seeing on the far side table. But more recently, it's become really unreliable from that perspective. And because I think this is not necessarily buying and selling, this is just transferring around, hence grayscale potentially just transferring to different wallets. So yeah, this has become markedly less useful, and even on top of that, like what appear to be buys or sells here aren't often being reflected in the end of the day table. So that's also confusing the situation a little bit. So anyway, I'm becoming less reliant on that and really just going back to looking at the end of the day data there. But yeah, so what we have, let me see if I can get Exo to open. God, I can't wait to get a new computer. I'm so fed up with this. Exos are always a bit slow. But what we're really seeing is, yeah, just, okay, so here, so again, I won't try and mess or scroll around too much on this, but you can see the longs on the bottom here started running in. Actually put my mouse thing on. The longs here started coming in, I think, when was that? 29th, says that? Oh, that's yesterday. Yeah, yesterday morning. So I was then like, okay, now might be the time to start considering looking for shorts. And so that would have been a decent short, but again, held up on support. Some of those longs closed out. Then we had some more coming in, but there are still not really loads. And also now they've pretty much all closed. So again, the incentive to drop that you normally get when everybody's longing the top just kind of isn't really there, or isn't there for any period of time. Shorts are still getting squeezed a little bit. But again, even shorts have died off. And, this is most action on Binance. And let me see if I can get Bybit up. Their stablecoin pair is probably the better one. But yeah, I'm not going to be able to scroll back far enough, I don't think. But again, it's just very much sideways, with a few, like, on a run, longs will go in and then they get stopped out on the retrace or take profit, and vice versa on the short side. So we're saying we're getting a decent bounce now, and you can see shorts have died off because there were some people in there shorting the bottom. No one really longing the bottom. So like it seems to just be a lot of scalpers at the moment, or algos, and like not any real interest. But we do have the ETFs. So if the ETFs are going to continue propping the price, then yeah, I'm not confident of shorts on this, but we'll see. Yeah, so that's kind of the difficulty there. PCH finally hit my alert. On US dollar dominance, like this was just me being sort of facetious, and I think I explained this in the previous video. I sort of was partly facetious, but somebody had said that they thought, I think around here, that US dollar dominance was looking bullish, and obviously, yeah, it was looking bullish lower time frame, but to me, it was also looking quite corrective in how it was moving up. It was just moving up, like compared to these runs when it really pushes hard, retraces, pushes hard, and you can see it sort of dying off towards the end and before it does a blow off top. But compared to the bounces here, this is not strong for me. So I was saying, there is a chance that we could reject here and then come back down. And it would be very nice if it comes back down into my 6-month monthly demands below that got just missed on that wick. So this didn't make a weekly supply like Bitcoin, but did make a 2-day, which obviously you can see it's wicked into today and into an 8-hour inside of that. So could see a bit more of a drop off on this, but obviously it's still got a little bit lower and could get a bounce off this 8-hour in here. And again, this is the challenge overall with Bitcoin, that we've got, an untested demand down there, a 4-hour that has been tested and had a good reaction here, so it could still bounce there again, and then also could make the higher low through here. Hence why you end up then with, just get rid of those, multiple areas that Bitcoin could reject. CME didn't flip a weekly. I mean, again, CME is just very messy, so it was hard to tell if this flipped the weekly supply to demand or not. The candle did close above all this red cluster, but where actual support is debated. Okay, here we go. So here on the career pair. No, let's start with CME. On the career pair, you can see it's made the weekly demand and it's just tapped into the top of it there. I don't know if that daily is still, yeah, so and it's still holding this daily demand. So again, it's like not exactly strong, but if we can get some consolidation through here, this can still obviously run. And as I've said before, my other thing with Korea was back in 2021. Again, I won't scroll all the way back there now, but we did have some time consolidating on the US dollar pair until the Korea pair structurally caught up. So as you know, the US dollar pair has taken out this high, whereas Korea is still rejecting for a lower high at the moment. So it is possible that this, runs. So one of the things to look for if we do get an upward move in the bigger picture, like barring any rejections at sort of in interim levels, in the bigger picture is if Korea gets up here, when Korea takes out that high, where is the US dollar pair at that point in time? And that's, I would hope, it's up in this 115 area. But I guess we'll see. Delete some of those drawings again. Yeah, so as I said, there's nothing really that I want to. I haven't put any new entries on this. I've been looking much more at alts. And yeah, so that's Bitcoin. On the totals, I haven't really looked at these. So I still need to run through everything to look further 1 month, 3 months, 6 month zones. So it's going to be painful and not load. So obviously, again, good strong move up off that bounce, so could run higher if it wants to, still holding the same sort of demand. The thing I haven't talked about on Bitcoin is at this stage, presuming we don't crash in the next 12 hours, going to make a 3 month demand. So I think we already have a 2 month maybe at the same level. 6 month, 2 month maybe at the same level. 6 months, sorry. But what we will have, I think Korea, not Korea, CME hadn't made the 2 month last month. But see now, we are now like still a swing failure of the high, but we are getting a decent close over this candle. So, and that 2 hour demand actually appears to be around the same level. So yeah, again, very much would be looking around there if we get a retest on this 3 month level. That's important. And yeah, other than that, I think there's nothing new. But yeah, and CME again, like I said, and maybe even Korea. Going back to sleep again for a moment. Yeah, okay, so CME, you can see we've got the same 3 month on that. This hadn't, I think with the 2 month, it hadn't quite closed, or it closed a little bit above actually. So we have tapped off the top of that. So I mean, arguably it's had a test already. But if it makes a 3 month, I think then it's fairly likely it's going to hold. Just see what Korea has, and Korea again will make a 3 month. It looks like actually a bit closer to the price there. So perhaps we'll front run the 3 month on the US dollar pair, but I'll have to see how things line up when we close later today. But that's going to be kind of interesting. Just unhide my drawings. Don't think I've got that 3 month drawn in on, and I do have the 3 months drawn in on the Korea pair. So yeah, so it's already wicked down into that zone. But yeah, it will require holding a higher low there. And for me, as you know, I was kind of looking down here, this 2 month, which will be a 3 month. So it could be interesting if we get a wick into that, closing this CME gap and taking out the lows there, if it holds like sort of just a swing fail of that zone rather than dropping down into the lower zones. So I guess we shall see. But yeah, so the 3 month closes are quite critical today. Don't know if we're going to get, so yeah, potentially a 3 month there on crypto cap if it closes above here. So next few hours are pretty critical because we're quite close on some of these, and hopefully it doesn't. I've got a horrible feeling it might just end up back in range, at least on the crypto cap charts, and therefore not really give anything definitive. Total 2 is still in the range, so that's looking unlikely to make a 3 month demand. Total 3, or it's already coming off of 3 months, the same. It's looking unlikely it's going to close above. And others the same. So others actually, more importantly, had made a 3 month supply via here. So this is why I've been more bearish on this, to at least come back down into these levels again. If you've followed me, then you know that if it closes, it's got a potential monthly demand if it closes below there, but obviously it's pumped up today, still holding. So that zone to the lower time frame, this is what I was looking at for the others chart, potentially for a push up into here, but it's still struggling with local supply. And this is what I'm saying on most alts, you know, like some of the alts had this 3-day supply in here and they flipped them back to demand, but I'm just, yeah, very uncertain at the moment as to whether this has the strength to kind of run through all this. It's all tested supply, so that's decent. But we need to see these bounces start picking up off here pretty quickly. And we might see that because it is the last day of the month, and we do quite often get fuckery the last day of the month and then the first week of the following month. If this fails here, then I'm very much looking all the way down at this point. And yeah, total E100 the same. So I've started looking at this total excluding the top 100 for basically the same thing. You know, is it going to just reject off this supply and drop back down into this zone? And that's kind of what I would expect on this, but it is possible still that, you know, we are holding this trend line just by a hair. We have had a little bounce here. Is it going to start trying to work its way back up into that zone? I'm not sure. So yeah, with alts, I'm very much waiting. I'm still, as always, just trading both directions. Let's see what dominance is doing. So dominance on BTC has obviously finally started to drop off a little bit, but it's still holding all the demands, and it's still looking like it's going to make a monthly demand on this here today. So there's nothing really that's making me say overall bearish on Bitcoin. They're not the strongest demands, but it's better to have demand than not have demand. So, you know, while if you've got a demand, you'd rather it close all the way up here, you certainly would rather it doesn't test on the immediate candle afterwards. So that's something to watch out for. But again, I'm not going to be bearish when we've got potential retest in here for then that bigger move. But that would be more interesting to me with the like when to long Bitcoin is if I see this drop down a bit, that's obviously going to mean US dollar dominance goes up a bit. And then just see the reaction in here and where the US dollar pair is on Bitcoin at that point in time. Ether's like made a weekly supply or 2-weekly supply, in fact, by the looks of it. Yeah, 2-weekly supply, it's just testing that now. Again, not the strongest because it hasn't broken below the range. But again, not a place I really want to long Ether because preferably I want it back down here. Or it goes through and then you get a retest afterwards. But at the moment, yeah, I remain bearish on Ether, but I'll get to that in a minute. Others dominance, again, decent bounce last night, which brought this up, and it did have a 3-day supply, but it's now kind of tenuously flipped that to a 3-day demand, but still would like this a bit lower. DeFi the same. I mean, DeFi I've now taken out the demand just so I can see what I'm doing, but weekly, I think I had a 2-weekly there and a 3-weekly below, but again now has this 3-weekly supply right above, even though again a weekly supply, but this isn't like what you're saying on all the majors as well. And then finally, total excluding 100 dominance. Again, like we're in a zone that it could get a bounce, but we need to see some of that. You need to see that bounce happen. You need to see, so far it's barely bounced, let alone even tested local supply. So, yeah, still a lot more to go on that. But really, the upshot of the kind of Bitcoin and market analysis is just, this sort of sideways. There's some possible pros with the fact that US dollar dominance, I do feel, could do that second wave, the third wave down, such that we get that kind of move. Maybe it bounces in there more aggressively or lower, or in fact, even taking out the low again. So, excuse me, my alarm. In some of those drawings. So yeah, not really much more to say than that. And like I say, so I haven't done a great deal purely because I just think alts have been again more interesting than trying to trade this on Bitcoin, and certainly more safer than trying to trade this on try dying again, than trying to trade this mess that we've had at least on the low time frame. So I mean, from my view on Bitcoin really is that at the moment it's either the very high time frame, so if you want to long, you long in this weekly, or you wait for the 3-month if it confirms, or you wait for down here if you get it, or you have to trade quite low time frame and you're trading all the swing failures, and you really need to be watching the low time frames, because I think the mid time frames are just choppy and difficult, and because we're doing these full retraces, you just don't know if you're going to get a reaction off the zone. So here you have very little reaction off that 2-day, and there here got a better reaction. Obviously went a bit up inside it, but again just gone sideways. So yeah, not much more I want to add on that, I don't think. Ether. Can you reload for me? Okay, so Ether again, like I said, anyone who follows me knows I've been predominantly bearish on this purely because a lot of people are bullish just because they're calling this a range, and we hit the bottom of the range and they're going to go up. That could be correct. My view is yes, we've hit the bottom of a range, or we've hit monthly demand at the bottom of that range. That's good, but we have a 3-monthly supply here. So my bias has been continually down. Doesn't mean we can't go higher in the zone, but my preference on Ether has been to look for shorts, given we firstly have a big candle here that we could retrace. Secondly, particularly more so when we created this weekly supply last week. So, and the bounce again, I was looking for a bounce off this low. I think I had here, and I also talked about this green line in the last video, so it kind of came between those two just to be super awkward. That green line is just previous wicks over here that held as support, so it was that 2,100 kind of area. But yeah, so we've got a decent bounce off that, but barely got up into the weekly supply to test it. So that was kind of my initial entry. I was looking for a possible short, and again, it took a while to hit. But then again, held demand, so nothing's breaking down in demand at the moment. Then I have two potential entries up here. I don't love them, so this actually is kind of an area. I'll show you the lower time frame in a minute. It's kind of the area, so 2,600 to 2,650, because that coincided with some zones on CME that hadn't been tested. So there's a 5-day zone and a 2-day zone in CME up here that hadn't been tested. So if we've got a bit of a push higher, that's kind of where I was looking there in that broad area. And then obviously the 8-hour at the top of the drop, should we get up there. And then if we keep going higher, obviously there's the higher zones that I've talked about previously, but this is just sort of in range zones I'm looking at. And then to the downside, again, I haven't added anything. It's still like, yes, there's a 3-day demand here, but it still makes me a little nervous because of the stops that have been left below it, and also coming off 3-month supply. If this drops, I expect this to break that. Doesn't mean it's not going to get an interim bounce. So it's crypto, so it can go either way, and that's the challenge. When you're trading like weaker zones, that I know those are weak zones. I know we're coming for 3-month supply, so this could just run straight through everything. Alternatively, we could come down here, bounce there, come here, bounce there, drawing. Come here, bounce here, retest, and then get all the way down there. So, I guess alert what I can, but, with those trend line stops there, I would at least expect it probably to get through that level, but, maybe you'll get an interim bounce a bit higher. So yeah, it's up to you what you want to trade on that. But there's nothing really more to say on Ether. We're testing weekly supply. We're coming off 3-month supply. We've had a stop hunt of the highs. We've had a stop hunt of the lows, which makes it more challenging. And we're holding this again. We're holding above this zone. So maybe it's going to pick that up again as support. So even then, if this gets a drift down into here and comes back up, then potentially I'd look for longs. But again, we'll just cross that bridge when we come to it. But this is not strong demand. This is coming off major supply. So, and again, if we get a weak push up higher in here, then maybe these zones are more viable if they've managed to get a better push. But at the moment, we've had like one candle which basically follows Bitcoin and is just hung up here for the last week and a half. Similarly, so the BTC pair, which it might show me in a minute if it's feeling nice. The BTC pair is basically like the dominance pair that I showed you a minute ago. So again, drop back below, 2-week supply above, weekly supply inside there. So yes, might get another little push into here, but my preference really would have been reject a bit higher. So I don't love these structures. In its defense, I guess it's taking its time, which generally means consolidation can be good, like rather than just instantly crashing, which is showing the sellers are really, really running in. Left some stops here, so like again, chances of this coming down here are pretty high. And also when you look at previous reversals, like it's not common that we get V-shaped reversals that do just take off. Not since back here, but even back here, this one maybe a little bit more, so this did consolidate higher before taking off, so maybe it's possible, but back in 2019 to 20, again, it retraced most of it down to back to the start of the impulse. And similarly here, this at least had a few tests before the big takeoff, whereas this has really not had very much consolidation at the low. Did take its sweet time coming down though, but I think everybody's fed up with waiting for it to do something. But again, my preference on Ether is that, you know, the US dollar pair, the BTC pair are back down at the start of this impulse and visibly holding before I start being confident about longs. I remain short biased with 3 months supply, 3 months supply on Korea, 3 months supply on the US dollar pair, 2 and 3 months on CME. And I don't think, unless these get some significant bounce or pump, they're not going to create any new demand on the higher time frames to be too concerned with. So yeah, that's Ether. What else? There, just show you the lower time frame chart. So I did have an entry for a lower high on Ether that I put in as a possible scalp. So obviously, and it ran through that. So just to be awkward, as you can see, I've got no new entries that I've added on Bitcoin. Now, once it went through there, I was just like, okay, it's going to mess around. The data's not really supporting any shorts. I'm not longing a high, and I'm not longing in this mess. I can see now we've created a new 4-hour supply there, so I don't know whether they're going to get a bit more drop. Ether had CME gaps a little bit lower, so it actually hasn't filled that yet, so that's something to be aware of. So yeah, I was looking for the possibility of a lower high on this, mainly just for the weekend price action, and also just the timing was just and Bitcoin just being annoying, because I think Bitcoin had already, so we'd already run up in this on when Bitcoin did its first high, but then at that point I didn't necessarily expect Bitcoin to make another high after CME opened. So, and then that coincided with then this bigger run. Sorry, another computer error. This then coincided with this bigger move on Ether to then take out the high. So, like, I was looking for rejection in this, I think it's a 2-hour supply there. But yeah, just went for the swing failure instead, which sometimes is just unavoidable. And also, it was a risky. I think I might have put in the comment. It was a risky entry, regardless, because, you know, while we haven't broken demand, any entry you put in for a possibility of a lower high has the risk that it's going to get taken out, because this is still in an uptrend. And while I think it's probably going to come down and take out the stops, I think Bitcoin already has taken out these stops, but also potentially could go all the way down and take out these stops as well, back into this weekly zone. I might settle an alert on the weekly here just to see. Think about that. I mean, the only thing risk or problem I have with that is obviously the weekly zone is massive, so, you know, I'm not telling anybody to long this entire zone. And the alert would just be on the top of it. But, you know, it's, again, hard to know if it's going to run down deeper inside to any of these other levels that it's mistesting. And given Bitcoin does want to tend to want to retrace entire moves at the moment, or when it's consolidating, if it does come down, there's a fair chance it's just going to go all the way back to the bottom. And the other thing on Ether, if that is the case, then if Bitcoin wants to run all the way to the bottom, then Ether is going to break down and make a lower low in conjunction with that 3-month supply that we're hitting off the top. So this is where I told you, so the 2600 and 2650 kind of area. So I put a circle, because I'm not, you know, they're low time frame zones, and I'm not that keen on them. And then failing that 8-hour at the top with the CME gap up there were the kind of next zones I was looking at on Ether if we get some smaller moves. If Bitcoin comes down and holds this weekly demand, I'd probably be a lot more wary of the shorts. But I'd like to see the test on that first. And then Bitcoin, yeah, so there's a zone here, like 12, I think an 8-hour, 4-hour supply that was just missed on this previous alert. Don't know if I've actually done an update since then. I can't remember, but yeah, it was a bit painful trying to get the shorts in on before the down move. The same here, like I was looking for a swing failure on Ether, and it kind of gave it, but it didn't quite get to the zone like I wanted. A little bit higher, either a swing fell there or a little bit higher into here, or some of the supply up here, but it missed that, and it sort of just did a high time frame swing failure a bit lower. Similarly here, Bitcoin, I was looking for it to get up into this zone, and it didn't quite make it. So hence I've kind of reset that alert on the off chance that we're just going to get a swing failure taking out this high. So we'll see on that, but yeah, TMI for me at the moment, it's just painful, and annoying trading those trading Bitcoin and Ether right now, and also still far more interesting. So on the alt market, yeah, again, I'm not gonna, given this taking me so long to do this stream, I'm not gonna do loads on it now. I will do another stream with hopefully a new computer later this week. But I want to go through and just find all the new supply and demand. So I can see here, for example, there's a 3-month level there that I've got marked in a dashed line. So I've kind of dashed all the lines in. So here you can see on BCH, it's potentially going to have a 3-month demand in there. So I want to look at TRX the same. So those are ones that I'm going to potentially be very bullish on. So barring any craziness happening, so I've got one, it's already a 1-month demand in there in TRX actually anyway. But if it comes down and hits that 3-month, then I'm going to be quite confident on that. You know, again, all weak, but still not something I'm going to trade against. And could have significant moves off the top. So BCH is definitely worth watching. TRX worth watching. On the 3-month Litecoin, still very much sideways. XRP has already got a 3-month down here. So again, it's not going to have anything new, but I think it might have a monthly. So XRP is on the cusp of creating a monthly demand. So if it closes above this red candle, then again, you can potentially look for a long off the top of there. Again, still a few hours to go and it's very tight. And equally, you know, if it doesn't, if it closes back below, it could also create a monthly supply. So just be careful, watch what you're looking for, watch, yeah, what you're on that, what you end up with, because it can change very quickly in the next few hours if it wants to. And then, yeah, on these, you know, so BCH, we just had this kind of slow grind up. So it's just hit my short alert since I've been on this stream. So there's a 5-day supply here. There's a 1-day and 2-day inside it a bit higher. So we could still go higher on this, but that's worth watching for a short there, particularly if Bitcoin is going to want to come down. I did have an alert here for weekly demand last week. Didn't come back and test for me, so we have had a couple of decent long entries in here that I've talked about in previous streams. Weekly demand, if it comes back, actually 2-week demand, if it comes back there, 3-week also inside it by the looks of it. And then I put a more aggressive one for 3-day demand in here. We've now also made a new weekly below. So again, just watch this general area if we get a retest. And you can watch where we are now for the possibility of getting a short entry. But just be careful of that. If it creates a daily demand, then I wouldn't bother shorting. As I've said before, I haven't put any new entries on these because I wanted to wait and see what the monthly closes look like. Had an alert, at least I don't think so. Maybe I have since I last shared, but I haven't really done much significant on the majors because I was really waiting to see what would happen. I did re-alert this daily supply in here on TRX because it did swing fail straight through those two when it had its IPO news. But yeah, so it may reject, you know, and again, it could be either of those. It could still go back up to, what's that, 0.29. But I really would have liked TRX, and I wouldn't be shorting if it had come down into this monthly zone, but it hasn't. So the problem now on the majors, though, is also they've kind of flipped. So TRX actually, in fact, already had 4 and 5 or 4-day demand, I think, and then it has now made a 5-day as well. But a lot of the majors that had 3-day supply have now flipped it to demand. I think Litecoin being one of them. Let's just show the 3-day. No, that actually, so Ripple had a 3-day just by a hair. It had a very slight close below, but now it's closed back above. So again, these could get bigger pushes from here. So we've got Ripple's testing the 2-day, but hasn't quite tested the 3-day. Litecoin's already tested that 3-day. So I'm quite interested to see what the reactions are on these. My concern is I know there was a time, and I can't unfortunately remember exactly when. Suddenly ended up with some of my drawings have reappeared on this. That doesn't happen very often anymore, but at times it does. When I open on my, God, a few reappeared. When I open on my iPad or one of my devices, then sometimes you can find somehow it remembers where your previous zones were, even though you've deleted them and saved it, and it hasn't shown them for 3 years or something. It will suddenly bring them all back. I have no concept of why that happens, and it's incredibly irritating. But yeah, anyway, so that's kind of what's happened there. That's why I wasn't random floating zones around in here that have been either run through, or in fact that whole monthly has been run through there. A lot of extra stuff on here that shouldn't be there. Anyway, and I've just pulled that alert as well, so that's not very helpful. 12-hour supply, I don't even know what I had alerted. Hold on, let me try and look. 90.515, I guess it was right there. Okay, yeah, so I guess I did add a couple of things on these, or maybe I had that before, so 12-hour supply in there that I got an alert for Litecoin. It's coming off 3-day demand now, so be a bit conscious of that. Ripple, my alert was back up because Ripple again can do these bigger swings and wick up when it wants to. It's left a double top here. It's in weekly supply, so this could have been a short. I feel like I might have had a short entry. I might have lost across from like in here. Got a feeling I had a short entry on that before, but I can check that. But I think there's an alert here for the 3-day supply. If it gets up there, obviously BCH has just hit that one, and then TRX just see if it gets a reaction at this daily level or at the 4-hour inside it. I guess Bitcoin's moving up now, which is why everything's looking kind of relatively strong here. And then again, obviously update all the charts for monthly, 3 months, 6 months, etc. demands. BNB link. Okay, so let's go BNB first. So BNB, again, need to add in all the new 3-month zones and all that. I don't think BNB is going to have a new 3-month, but BNB already had a monthly. So again, if you follow me, you'll know that I had that long entry there waiting. So that was pretty nice, and that's had a good move off it. Just because of the pump we had last night, I did set an alert just taking out these equal highs in case this gets a swing failure. So you can watch in here to see if it swing fails. And then there's a 12-hour, 8-hour demand at the supply at the top there that potentially could be shortable. But this, be conscious of the fact this is coming off monthly demand, so this is not short bias at all. That made me turn back to long bias. It still would be nice to get, a rejection here and a retest there, and maybe like some move that's more tradable in swings, and that's why I have the short entries, but know that these are not high probability when we've got a monthly demand at the low. And it was only BNB and Link, I believe. I think I put that in the Telegram channel that I put a long entry on, and it was on BNB purely because it's coming off a monthly demand. Link was the same, or Link because it's on a monthly at the low, and also the Link BTC pair is on 2-month, 6-month demand. So because of the BTC pair, I was again wanting to be more bullish on Link. Still under weekly supply on Link, or 3-weekly supply in here. It's at a 5-day inside, but again, I haven't put any short entries on this because of what's going on with the BTC pair. If it gives a retest down here, that would be very nice. We shall see, and I will update all of these once the monthly closes happen, just to see if there's anything new on them. DOGE, again, I didn't have an alert for this large 3-weekly supply that it's in. Nice bounce off the low, but again, hasn't got past any local supply yet. So while everybody's getting bullish and all these things are bouncing, and remember here, here we did get past, so we've got this down move. Here we did get past local supply. So we could have longed for a higher low here on the basis that we got past local supply, but it only ended up on a wick, and then we flipped. So we had a 3-day supply here. It closed back below, I think, on the 3-day. Just check. Yeah. And then continued the rejection and continued to move down. So as bullish as you feel here, bear in mind we are still in the same kind of scenario, where we're still in this down move and we're still just testing that first major supply from the last drop. And we're not bullish obviously until we get above here, because that's the bigger wave. But even then, it can still reject the top of that last down move if it wants to. So again, DOGE, I want to be bullish because we're on annual demand here, so hence the higher low entry, but I need to see a little bit more from this, and I think it's these are probably going to need, if they are going to hold these higher lows, then we need a lot more consolidation through here. I don't see the market doing a massive V-shaped recovery. And I can see my picture's frozen, making me look like a crazy person. I know I'm unfrozen now. That's good. Hopefully I didn't remain looking like a crazy person for too long, with big eyes. Just check my connection still seems to be okay, so that's good. Although nobody's come in to watch me, so I can't. Let me see if anybody said anything on Telegram. Nope, nobody's watching me at the moment, so I guess it doesn't matter. I'm just talking to myself. Yeah, so again, DOGE we need to see. It's still very early days. I'd like to see a test here hold. But there is a risk, obviously, having had a retest that we make a lower low. So that's kind of my next alert on that at the moment. Wasn't anything clean enough. And I didn't want to alert all of these for a higher low since the bounce. I wanted to pick ones that I thought, well, they're quite often it does completely opposite to what I think. Suddenly they'll show random strength in something else. And I froze it again. Not good. But anyway, I'm sure you can live with me with a frozen face. Yeah, so I wanted to pick kind of ones that were more I had more confidence in, and that would be BNB because it's coming off the monthly demand at the low, and Link because of the BTC pair. ADA is one of the weakest, but ADA also can just pick up if it wants to. It's a difficult one because it is in a large 6 month demand, but it can kind of bounce randomly. So I was kind of looking for possibility of a swing fail here. It took out that low but didn't take out the low before. So I have got that same alert set now, but I'm actually quite wary of this. I feel like if this is going down, this is just going to drop through next time. So yeah, don't blindly trade that, but you can just see what happens if it gets there. And failing that, 3 month demand all the way down here, and potentially, it can go deeper inside here. That's the alert, but it can go deeper inside. So I do think that's got the capacity to go a lot lower if it wants to. And in fact, and I've talked about this before on ADA actually, even on the macro, I still think, that people are bullish here for, potentially doing that. But I look at these charts and I'm just like, well, this is a bear flag or broadening wedge bear flag. That's what I see on this as the higher probability. So I don't know, we'll get a test off here and then possibility of doing that. So in this case, I think ADA, I managed to check DOGE as well, but this might create a monthly supply. So yeah, it's not going to be the cleanest monthly supply, or because it's like got 3 candles. I just hide my drawing, so we're going to have 3 candles going up. But at this point in time, this is going to close below at least that candle. So I probably look for a bit more precision on the entry. But this at this stage is looking like that level is going to become monthly supply. And if that's the case, then we could very easily get a test here, a retest up here, and then that bigger drop. So like I say, be careful. I don't like where this has stopped at all. Like I would just like that back down and demand properly in an ideal world. So yeah, we need to see a little bit more on ADA, but that's not one I want to long at the moment. And I also think the BTC, I think I did have an alert actually for hitting a 3-day demand on the BTC pair, but I think it wasn't necessarily a level that I was particularly thinking this is going to be a great bounce low. I think it was just the last hurrah point of possible higher low on the BTC pair. What else? So second lot of majors, hopefully will load. Dot near Sol and Atom. Making their sweet time. Okay, so Sol's actually moved up a bit. So Sol was the only one I had a short alert go on because it had made a weekly supply in here. It's gone up a little higher into it now. I had a little reaction and then it's got a bit higher. But this one I was potentially, it's a difficult, again, just the challenge. So we're coming off monthly demand at the lows here, which is pretty nice. It's actually one of the more aggressive retests, like most of the other majors, not the old majors, most of the new majors have come all the way back down to the bottom there. So this actually is relatively strong. The thing I liked about this from a bull perspective also is that it hadn't quite, so my alert went here twice for that monthly supply up here, but it didn't quite tap it. So there is a chance that, it's going to go up there for the draw and liquidity above these previous highs because it didn't properly get into that monthly supply before. So I'd look for a swing fail here if it retests, and then also there's other zones like even higher, hence choppy through here. So I don't know, but you can look for a shorter on a swing failure if it gets back up here. But yeah, for now, also it's in weekly supply. So again, I'm not gonna. Sorry, I'm deleting the wrong things now. Yeah, I'm not looking for longs on this right now, but certainly if we get a rejection in here, if it comes back down and holds here, you can potentially look for the higher low for a move up to that zone. But at the moment, again, for me, this is my next entry. It's kind of just looking, okay, we're in a bit of a downtrend here. We've got a weekly supply. So if you do manage to get a short off the weekly, then I would hold that down there because it is a higher time frame. I just need to see a little bit what the rest of the market's going to do, particularly today. It's month end. And also we have NFP this week, so the 5th. It's on Thursday this week because Friday is a public holiday in the US. So might get most of the action in the first 2 days of the week rather than later. But yeah, that's Solana. And no, let me just go dot. So dot. Oh, actually, this is I think maybe the only new major that made a lower low. So this did actually take out the low from April, coming down into the next zone of interest, but hasn't really bounced very well. So a bit like ADA, hasn't really done anything significant. It's got some chop up here, and I do have I need to revise these alerts, I think, and just think about what else is in there. And like this zone for the 2-4 day supply, they're retesting that 3-monthly zone. So we need to see again, is this going to create? Yeah, so this is going to similar to what was it? So it's ADA, in fact, is going to create a new monthly supply in here. It's already got the 3-week anyway. 3 weeks lower. This 5-day supply is going to coincide with the new monthly supply on this. So again, can't be particularly bullish on this. It's broken down. It's like at the moment it's closing below that level. Again, if it closes below on the monthly, makes the monthly supply, then potentially this is just a dead forever scenario where it comes back up and tests. And we'll see. Like the only thing that would make me change my view on that is if it closes back above the monthly and then flips that monthly to support. But until then, I'd be very bear bias on this if we get a close below this orange line and making a new monthly supply in there, which is looking fairly likely. The BTC pair on dots also, I think, at all-time low, so it's hideous. Near is still on monthly demand, so again, I would like to be a bit more bullish on this than on dot. But also did take out the April low on a swing failure, so I think I was looking for the higher low on that, but it didn't last long. And now again, just testing 3-week supply, so not something I'm bullish on. But I want to see, like I need to see. So this again, we've got that new. So all of these, you'll see, I've got sort of these 2-day, 3-day drawn right below the price. So I just need to see if these are gonna, even if they just get one more leg up to, demand, supply in higher in the large 3 weeks that we've got on everything. But I just need to see these bounces in here if that's going to hold. And then finally Atom. So Atom, as you know, is the bane of my existence. Like I kept looking for shorts on this on the 3-month supply after the test here, and then I wanted it to go up and test here, even back there, but it didn't get there, and in fact didn't even get there ultimately. I kind of like just wanted to be more dramatic on this. I wasn't looking for a higher low, so again, I'd like this to fall down into this 2-week monthly demand back down here. Again, it's coming off a 3-month supply, so the majors are holding up a bit better with the coming off the 3-month supply. But if you go and look at some of the other alts, I think, let me just check whether I covered all of those first. I did do all of those. I mean, you can see on all of them, where I've currently got potential short alerts in, but like I keep saying actually for the last few weeks, take them with a pinch of salt because I'm not looking at them in detail. Stock's gone a bit higher now, but that's kind of the Sol and BCH are the kind of the two that you can watch for today if Bitcoin's going to come down. If they're going to load. So yeah, these could get dragged down if Bitcoin does finally break support, which is not looking very likely at the moment. I was going to show you, so as an example, and why it becomes so bearish when things do have supply or not. Well, not so bearish, but just don't long it. Like, why would you do that? And also to reiterate, the biggest mistake I see people make when I see analysis on Twitter is that they're not looking at high enough time frames. Obviously page unresponsive. Let's just give it a moment. is that you can look at these. So I've got a good example here with history. This is a good example actually, because this is like something I guess would have helped, or would have been okay for the people who don't look at the high time frames. But for me, so this is a massive 3-month supply. It's in a downtrend. Wick took out all the highs and it now has come down and taken out the lows. So it's kind of really, I said it's a downtrend. It's in a 3-month downtrend, but it's a dubious downtrend. It's like broadly, it's kind of in a slightly rangy sideways downtrend. But it has hit a 3-month supply. So as soon as it hits that, I become short biased. But obviously, you've still got to wait and see what you get. This also might create a 6-month supply now. And again, that's why you really need to look at where things are closing today. Because if this closes underneath that level, it is entirely possible it just taps into that tomorrow, this week, and drops hard off it. I've seen that many times. It starts to have a monthly, it's also going to make a monthly demand below, so you have to consider where all the different zones are. That 6-month is going to be quite critical if we get a close on this below 0.16. But what I quite regularly see is, to lower time frame again, is people like Rose. Shouldn't mention names in my video, really. Forget I said that. But I see people saying long now. And I'm like, why would you long? We've just hit 3-month supply. So in this case, this would have been okay to do that. But what, at least for me, I'm waiting for, so I have an alert go here for the fact we've hit the 3-month supply. Then I'm looking, are we going to get a short entry off that? Are we going to get a decent reaction? Are we going to get a mouse that actually draws when I tell it to? In this case, we had a big push straight afterwards, so it didn't give any sort of reasonable time frame short entry on that. And then I'm like, okay, well, now we've made a daily demand, we had a decent push off that, so there is a chance we're going to get a push from here to come up into supply, take out some of this bigger drop and come up into higher supply inside the bigger 3-month. So then again, I had an alert, so I can happily flip to a long on this, but again, I know I'm in 3-month supply. But the amount of times I've seen people on Twitter just go low, they're longing here because it's hitting EMA or something like that. And again, and then they're shocked why, it's just fallen straight back down. And it's like, well, you haven't checked any of the higher time frames. You don't know what levels you're at. And, people take the piss out of me for all my colors and all my lines on my charts, but at least I always know what zones I'm trading in. So anyway, so this, got the retest long in here. And then you're just looking at what the next supply is. So this supply then was a 2-week supply up here. And then I think we had a 5-day. So I think this alert was like for 5 days / 3-week inside, obviously. And again, so here we got a drop. I wouldn't have longed at this point because then we're pushing too high into the 3-month supply. And also you can see that it's potentially starting to distribute. Like this wasn't a really strong move. It did reject immediately off there. It did come back to demand, so it could have had a long entry there, which actually, in fact, I did have set and has only hit today. So this entry now is a fairly high risk long. But then, so it rejects, comes back, goes to the second short, so then gets a nice decent short, and then you can start thinking about holding it. And really what you want then is a retest for the proper confirmed entry. So this hasn't given the retest yet. Is still in 4-day demand. But again, it's just being conscious, okay, we're in a 4-day demand, it's not the nicest one, but we are in a 3-month supply. So, you've got to make a decision as to whether that's a long you want to take or whether it's too high risk. And you can long here if you want, you can short here if you want, but you've just got to know what time frame you're trading, where your stop is for invalidation for that particular trade. And I shared quite a few in my Telegram channel earlier, which I can go through actually. And show how you can really get the swings. Like people are obsessed with alt season, but the swings are going to make you way more money. And let me just look at what I was going to show you was, I think, XEM, because it's a nice example of real death. Which one? Not that chart. So here. So again, why you should always be conscious of what you're trading in. So this is an annual supply. And so this is the same example as I gave on Kaya when if it closes even just below here, you've got to look for that immediate test off it, because then you can potentially get a really big move. So Kaya, if that closes with that 6 month, it's got the 1 month below, which just throws it off a little bit, but at least even if it gets a move down to the 1 month on Kaya, that's better. But in here, so we've got an annual supply, it's just tapped into it and just dropped straight off it. And in fact, so if you look at the 6 month, same here, made a 6 month supply, tapped into it, and now you've got the bigger move. And it can take time with these zones. The immediate test can be quicker. But again here, so it did come up inside it. We did go through that monthly, so I think I did. That was this last year was a little bit awkward, with the pump we had in December, because it did take it through or deep inside zones, or in some cases these were swing failures of these monthly zones. That just went up into the monthly. This is why you should always know what direction you're trading in, and now it's made a new 6 month supply, but that really shows, like actually did wick up here fairly hard. Not necessarily the easiest trades to get into, so I'm not necessarily saying this is the easiest trade, but the point is just being really conscious of the fact, it's made an annual supply here. I don't want to be long biased, even if it's going up. It can be long biased for a bounce, but even here, I would be saying to myself, okay, I can be long biased just to get, this is the weekly chart, so you can potentially get, decent, it's had, 5 or 7, 8 days of up there, so you can certainly get decent longs on this, but you should be getting out of next supply. You shouldn't be kind of going, oh, this is going to make a new high. So yeah, that's a sort of real things you need to look for with these 6 month, 3 month closes that we're getting now. What was the other example I was just thinking about? Remember now? I don't know. So I need to start, like, I only got to the A's, B's, and C's so far, but I actually need to run through all of these and just not. I keep getting bogged down by looking at the lower time frames at the same time, and I'll start drawing all the lower time frame zones, but I really need to be strict and run through and just draw only the monthly upwards so I can actually get through the list pretty quickly. So there's going to be a handful. So for example, XMR is fairly likely to be creating in fact, already had a monthly demand down there. So this has got a 3 month at the bottom there. It's got a 6 month, so it's already created a 6 month, and it's already created a 3 month. And yeah, it's already, so there's nothing new on this, like it already has the monthly, but this is where you're seeing the big moves, is when they come and test. So in this case, it didn't test, but if it comes back to here, then I will be very long biased, because it's got a 6 month demand in there, which I haven't currently got drawn in, even though I should have. So yeah, 6 month demand. Don't really need that 2 month there, I don't think. But yeah, there's a 6 month demand there. There's a 3 month demand there. And the levels. Some of the charts do this. They kind of move the levels, or the candle closes to suddenly change. Having drawn them previously, I find that quite bizarre. I don't really know why. But yeah, so there's a 6 month, 3 month demand in there. Just through that as calling it. I shouldn't be updating these right now anyway, but just to give you the general idea of what you're looking for, and what's going to potentially be the really solid trades at a later date. So there's a 6 month level there, and then there's 2, 3 months on top of each other. That's why I was getting confused. Yeah, so again, if we come back down to there, then that's a really nice solid long entry, and that's what I would have been waiting for here but didn't get. And I think I said that, here I was looking for that short to take out this trend line, but it did stop short and then just pump straight up through it. And similarly here, I can have short entries in here, but if you know you're coming off a monthly demand and you're in a very bullish trend, you're going to find the run through. It's still worth watching, like this one gave a very nice short eventually. So I haven't updated some of these levels in here as yet, but again, monthly demand there. If it comes back down, nice test. I remember what I was thinking about earlier, but so you're going to find a lot of the older coins. So that's it. Yeah, a lot of the older coins are going to be creating the monthly, 3 month, 6 month supplies. So it's the newer coins that are going to be more interesting. And don't need to go there. And then yeah, so these are the examples I gave earlier. So if you follow my Telegram channel, you'll know I posted this in there last week. So if you can see, there's 2 crosses here. So this had wicked down, hit the monthly level. I reset the alert for a second test on the monthly level in here, and has a massive move off it. it's at the point, it's got no supply. So there was a possibility of swing fail there. So then I alert that just to see, just in case it swing fails those two highs. But there's no supply on this. It's got a monthly demand, so it's got the capacity to make a really big move. And then obviously capacity to fall off a cliff. So, but those are the ones you really want to watch. So any of the new coins that make these new monthly demands are really worth watching. Form is another one. So again, shared this in the Telegram channel. It had made a monthly demand. This first wick came down really hard into it. And then I said, okay, so we might come back and retest this level, see the reaction there. So again, really solid, strong reaction off there. White was another one. Not the strongest monthly demand because of the fact it didn't really get much above this high. But again, still one that's worth watching. And it's high probability, even if it does come back, rejects now and comes back deeper, it's at least high probability for a scalp. You can get a mini swing, you can get your stops to break even. So, it had the first test, then it had the test actually with a 3-day above the monthly, then it came back for the monthly, and then you get the retest on the 12-hour or 8-hour. It was a 12-hour demand or 8-hour demand in there a couple of days later. And again, you're looking just at all these swings, long, short, drop, another short, longs when it gets back to demand, short when it gets back to supply. Even the aggressive ones, so these sort of breakout trades, this one I've talked about before, but it kind of looks like I'm longing the top, but in fact, this was just an aggressive entry on this, I think it was a 4-hour demand in there, and you can see it actually did get, I think it was quite a decent move off there. What percentage that was, trying to remember. Yeah, like 80% move off that, or even 2 or 3R, depending on where you had your stop on that. So don't be so hell bent on holding for all season and things like that, because all these give so many are giving such nice swings. Useless just keeps going. Like I haven't managed to get an entry on that yet. White we just talked about. Tibia was another really nice one. So again, longing here just while it was still continuing this. So this I was just very conscious, and the same on the useless. Why I'm tracking these in a separate layout now. That they keep, so we've got some longs down the bottom, but they've just kept going and grinding, and now you can see all the trend lines are kind of starting to run through trend lines now, so it starts to then think that you're more confident of taking shorts. So at this point we're still looking for longs. We were still holding a 2-day demand, obviously at the last minute I'm getting in, and then it did find a top before dropping back down into this daily demand down here. I didn't have an alert on that earlier one, but I think it becomes, didn't really want to long this because of all the chop and because it could throw a giant red candle through everything if it wants. But yeah, then got the long re-entry here into a short line. I think it was 12-hour supply there, back into a long here, back into a short here. You don't want to do too many swings after it's done sort of ABC, then it's going to probably break in one direction, so you're starting to think about the bigger trade. And ZBCN, similar scenario. I was watching this for a while for looking for shorts because again it just overextended, wanted it to come back down and test down here. Got a 2-month in there as well. Still longing all up here, got a trend line break long, but then it came back down, couldn't hold a higher low here and fell back through. So then I started looking for more aggressive shorts. I was a little bit wary of this one, but I was like, well, made 3-day supply, worth watching to see if it's going to break. And then now we've got a 4-day supply in there. So again, worth watching for a possible short re-entry. Preferably if this one, you would really like this wave to have broken the low to then get the retest rather than bounce from here, but we'll see. Doesn't mean it won't work, it just means it's lower probability. And syrup, also something watching for, again, potentially the bigger breakdown, syrup and hype. Again, long entries from here, long entry here, too aggressive on that one. Came back down lower and back into weekly demand. Short entry here didn't work because it just ran straight off the weekly demand. So again, it's counter the bias. And then I had another short possibility, 12-hour supply in here, which came, I think, just before the weekend. It did go through the 12-hour, but has made a lower high. So it was a little bit too aggressive on that. But now just need to see if it's going to hold this 4-hour in here. New weekly demand below, but momentum starting to die off on this, so I could start. I think this is going to give some nice swings to trade in both directions, but we'll see. Just need to see what kind of strength it's going to have off here. I think I might have put yeah, I said watch the 11, and then there's an 8-hour inside at the bottom here if it wants to retrace deeper, just because of that channel. Is that everything? All of these on this layout? But yeah, just trade all these little swings that we're getting. Oh, hype, that was the one I hadn't talked about. So hype hit this major, I think it's 3-day and 5-day demand in here when Bitcoin was dumping. So it came all the way to the bottom of it. So, but again, essentially it held that original alert. Then again, short off whatever that was, daily 12-hour supply in there, long on a retest of daily 8-hour demand in here, and now it's approaching the next one. So again, just trading each of those swings while they're nice and clean and easy to trade. Like I said, you can look back at these, they don't always work. There's a trend line break there that took off, then obviously that short too aggressive just for a lower high, and then it broke out, and then here a little bit too aggressive on the long. Sometimes I'm a little bit early when it's very volatile after the original pump. Then if you're too early, then while it's still finding what range it's going to do, that's when you'll find more of them are more likely to fail, and then it becomes easier a little bit later. So I think Tibby is probably a good example of that. But yeah, if you'd started trying to get longs and shorts in this area, you can see how choppy and painful it would have been. You can see momentum's dying, and that's when I started watching it, but there was nothing clean. So I was more watching the trend lines, thinking, are we going to break some trend lines at that point in time? But even then, that wasn't clean because we had trend lines. So here, that wick, we did break the trend line, but then we reclaimed it, but we hit a lower, made a lower trend line. And then there was a steeper trend line which came in later. So again, it became a little bit hard to even monitor the trend lines on this. But then, yeah, once it settles a bit and forms a range, it then becomes much easier to just trade the swings in the range. So yeah, I think that's all the secondary layout ones. And yeah, so that's kind of really what I need to be doing, is going through and looking at all those monthly, what we all need to be doing, looking through all the monthly zones and things that have been, I can't remember what was on this layout before this now, which is annoying. All the monthly zones and the 6-monthly, 3-monthly, and yeah, making sure they're all marked and ready on your charts for, like, so you're not counter trading, a sort of a single daily strong candle, but that's running straight into a 3-month supply. Right, that was kind of a new one that had come through in Bub, actually. I think I haven't looked at either. So Bub's coming into a daily demand there. But again, it's coming off it. So these monthly supplies aren't great. This is from when it opened on MEXC, so slightly more skeptical. But you do find they do get reactions, so it is worth watching, the reactions off those. But Bub's, yeah, been one that's been messing around a bit, but I kind of thought it was a nice consolidation here. A lot of these, the other thing I don't like that I'm seeing on a lot of charts are these trend line stops here. And they're challenging because, they don't have to take them out, if they are ready to reverse and it's got a big move up like this, like Bub, maybe it's just not going to come back for those stops. But that is the risk when things are dropping. So again, so that Bub had a daily demand made there that you can keep an eye on. And so this I've been looking for more for a breakdown because of this weekly supply in here. I'm not sure if it's tested it. Yeah, it has tested the weekly. Now it's got another thing illustrating the importance of keeping on top of all the zones and things. So this has made a new 3-day demand in here. Doesn't mean it's going to hold that I would want to long it, but so I had an alert go here, I think, for 1-day/2-day supply. So it did have a rejection off the 1-day, but then it's come up higher and hit the 2-day, and now it's come back down again. I had an alert, so we talked about this a bit in the channel. Be nice if it makes a 1-day supply today, actually. So it broke a little trend line of stops I had here with this black one, but I said, that it had this 8-hour supply here, but I wasn't overly confident of it. And I didn't like that the trend line break went straight into demand. So this obviously then did get a move higher, but now we've just got another trend line break alert. But again, we've got the same issue. The black cross there, the same issue is this now is going into 3-day demand. So you've got to be conscious that while this still is in a major downtrend, that at some point, if it wants to reverse and if the market's ready, obviously it can reverse, or it can even do something like that just to be awkward and annoying before dying. We do see that quite often. So yeah, something to keep an eye on, but yeah, I don't like Prime particularly for shorts on that right now, but not with that new 3-day demand. And these are some of the other ones that are coming today. So launch again, just really nice trading in both directions. So long off here, up into a potential short in supply up there. Bob's hit the supply. So yeah, a similar example to Pry. Something I was trying to long here, but then eventually got the short before it then it had a bigger breakdown because, once it starts, if it's floundering around a bit in here, then you've got to kind of tell yourself that maybe this isn't the bottom and maybe it's going to go lower. So similarly here, is this, I think the alert here is for 1-day/3-day supply, so it could still go a bit higher in this, particularly now it's made a new 8-hour demand. Yeah, so I guess we'll see. And it's made a new 3-day demand on the bottom of this. So again, the challenge with all these alts at the moment is, are they going to hold? Is this still that downtrend continuing? 1, 2, 3, 4, retrace down, or is this now like a reversal? We've had like a 5 waves down, and we're going to at least get a 3-wave up. Maybe it gets only up to there. It doesn't have to make a new high, but that's kind of what we're looking at. What else? ETH5, another short on that. So yeah, skate, which I talked about earlier. So I posted this like this. I posted this in the channel a few times. So this obviously had a few nice longs on here and went straight into a short entry and has now just died off that. So this has hit 4-day demand in here now, but it's obviously come down way harder than you would kind of want it to. So this may just be wanting to die now. But again, another one also with trend line stops. So this does appear like it's wanting to just collapse. So actually, don't really want to delete those until I'm sure that's broken down. But yeah, that's not the nicest entry, but a very nice short entry that I posted in the Telegram channel earlier. All right, so I don't think there's much more I wanted to cover today, and that's been 1 hour and 15, so quite a quick stream for me. If you're interested in this content, please like and subscribe. Feel free to join Telegram and ask me any questions you want to ask me. All the links and everything are in the description. Yeah, and then if you want to join my group, feel free to hit me up. Like I do have just a standard price for it, but I'm open to suggestions. If you want to just join up using one of my referral codes or something like that, then we can consider that. And yeah, then you'll get access to all these alerts. Actually, you can't see that because it's off the bottom, it's hiding behind my picture. But yeah, all the alerts that come up in Telegram. That's not going to load now, just to be awkward. So if I can show you the Telegram channel. So yeah, Telegram channel. So you'll see all these alerts that are coming up, even while I've been on stream. PCH that I talked about prior, that I was just talking about, BNB's just hit those equal highs that I just talked about. Is all automated into Telegram, so constantly giving you trades or trade possibilities, ideas, all the time. So that's pretty nice. And if you're interested in that, let me know. We'll see where Bitcoin hasn't really done anything since I've been on the stream, so that's decent. But again, just still holding here. But I really want to see Bitcoin. I want to see those longs go in. The top longing people, because that really is the sign of the reversal. This is not. Hi, Paballo. Just followed, and I'm just about to finish. Yeah, anyway, this is obviously not going to load now, so I won't go into that right now. But yeah, feel free to hit me up on Telegram if you've got any questions, and please like and subscribe if you're interested. And have a great evening.